That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. I would just like to point out, James, when we spoke yesterday, at one point I asked you when you thought they would call this election. Let's go back, travel back 24 hours ago when you said this.
I would respectfully submit somewhere between 10 and 10:15 Eastern Time, or whatever it is now, daylight time. Some network is going to call it.
10:07 on CTV. Congratulations, Jim Mennie.
Thank you very much. It's very gallant of you
Yep.
to have mentioned that. I have to tell you, I was following the coverage on Radcan, and they went at about 10:10. TVA followed. At which point I quickly went to bed because they said, well, we don't know if it's going to be majority, minority. And I said, well, you know what? You get that sorted out, and I'll take a look at it tomorrow morning. So I made my way. But to wake up this morning, I wasn't surprised. By the semifinal result, I was absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that Monsieur Poilievre is no longer a member of Parliament. I know they had said, "Oh, he's in trouble in his riding," but everybody's in trouble in their riding. We had all kinds of reports coming down the pike. But yeah, that to me is a very interesting development because, as I said previously on this show, the conservative problem is Stephen Harper and his legacy. That's why they have lost for the fourth consecutive time against the Liberal Party, which, quite frankly, just this version of the Liberal Party is the old Liberal Party, except it's got a fresh cake of pancake makeup and some rouge and a fresh layer of lipstick, and that's pretty much what this Liberal Party is. And the Tories cannot beat them. And I know they had gains in Ontario, and I was listening to your interview with Carlton Prill before, and I think he's right. I think the Liberals should pay attention to that because there are fissures appearing in the, how can I put it, the public's trust or perception of the Liberal Party of Canada. But all that said, the Conservatives have a huge hill to climb, and I think, as far as I'm concerned, they only have themselves to blame. They have turned themselves into a very prickly, prone to yelling, does not play well with others, really kind of annoying political entity. And I think we saw those results certainly in the general election, and certainly in the riding of Carleton. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how and if Pierre Poilievre is going to try and talk himself back into politics.
The suggestion, of course, is that there'll be a by-election call. That's got to happen inside of 6 months. Some people are suggesting the Liberals won't be in a rush to do that, obviously. Yeah. But then I wonder, and I brought this up earlier in the show, Jim, and I didn't hear anyone talking about this specifically. And I wonder when I saw Poilievre lose that riding, right, the one that he's been in for 20 years, and I wondered aloud, you think this might have anything to do with the people? Let's remember the trucker rally back, in 2020, whenever that was, and Pierre Poilievre being out there and shaking hands and handing out coffee. You think any of that still lingers this much after the fact, and that's perhaps why he lost?
It happened in Ottawa, and Carleton's in the Ottawa area riding. So I think it had a huge effect on the people there. And to be fair, I think it's Bruce Fanjoy, his Liberal opponent, just campaigned like hell to win that seat, and he did it. But I got to tell you something else. And our good friend Neil Dropkin this morning, along with Andrew Carter, suggested that, as you say, someone will give up their seat. A Conservative will give up their seat, a safe seat, to Poilievre in a by-election to get him back into the House of Commons. And it has happened before. I remember that I covered the late, great Robert Barrasso when he had a huge comeback in 1985. He lost his seat, and he ended up having to run in a by-election. An MNA gave up his very, very safe seat up in St. Laurent, and he won. And nobody got their noses out of joint because that was the kind of the tradition, and it was considered. Maybe I'm using the wrong term in this day and age, but it was considered the gentlemanly thing to do. But all that said, Aaron, the tone of politics in this country has changed, and it has changed specifically because of Pierre Poilievre. And quite frankly, if Pierre Poilievre was reacting to the possibility that Pierre Poilievre would try to get back into politics through a by-election, I think my imagined Pierre Poilievre would say that despite the fact the people of Carleton sent Pierre Poilievre a very, very clear message last night, he has decided to ignore it. Rather than abide by the democratic choices of his constituents, he is going to conspire with his political cronies to use a loophole to sneak into the House of Commons through the side door. I think that's how Pierre Poilievre, my theoretical Pierre Poilievre, would put it. And please don't kid yourself. You're saying that the Liberals won't be in a hurry to call a by-election. You're darn right they won't. And I'll tell you something else, a fearless prediction. When they do call that by-election, they will use every single weapon in their arsenal to beat Pierre Poilievre again.
So let me ask you a question, because this came up last night while watching the coverage. At one point, we were about 157 to 150, 152. And I thought to myself, and I heard some of the analysts talk about this on the CTV broadcast, the idea that imagine if the numbers stay around this, that you could actually have the bloc holding the balance of power if there was a challenge to this government. Of course, the numbers have changed since. Could you have imagined that?
That was a nightmare scenario. Because if you had, at one point I'm looking at it and going, my God, if the Tories get a minority and the bloc is holding the balance of power, I was thinking, how long will it take for me to pack? It's like this was the situation. It didn't happen, and in fact, it was I don't know. I was just listening to Yves-François Blanchet on the news. They're talking about having a truce and cooperating. I don't know what happened to him last night, but clearly he's had, how can I put it, a come to Mark Carney moment. Yeah. So much so that in fact, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon of the Parti Québécois has publicly sort of complained about Blanchet's attitude towards Mark Carney. But I think losing about a dozen seats will focus the attention quite specifically. But honestly, what I'm seeing right now is a party that I'm pretty sure is going to hold. The Liberals will hold at 169. They've got 7 NDP MPs rather to deal with, who they could form a coalition with. They only need 4, and quite frankly, who knows? I mean, how attached will those NDP MPs be to their party right now, which no longer has official status, so their budgets are going to be like virtually non-existent? Is it possible they might be induced to cross the floor? Maybe, 3 or 4 of them, Aaron, because they only need 4 for that majority.
But then they get to having to call an election, and nobody wants to do that anytime soon.
They're not going to call. No. You have to call an election. No. If you want to cross the floor, as a sitting MP, you can do that. We've seen it happen in the House of Commons. We've seen Tories cross the floor to the Liberals, and Liberals cross the floor to the Tories.
No. I'm sorry. I thought you meant actually in an effort to bring the government down.
No.
Okay.
In fact, to buttress the government.
Right.
If you've got 7 people there, you'll sit down with the 7 and say, listen, what's it going to take for you to become a Liberal? You don't have a party anymore. The banner you fought under has been shot to pieces. You no longer have a leader, and quite frankly, anybody who was supporting your party voted for us. So how do you want to spend the next 4 years? I don't think that's so off the wall as a possibility, and I think it would be a very pragmatic, if you'll see that word I chose, pragmatic way for the Carney Liberals to deal with this issue.
Although some might say that's exactly what cost the NDP votes in the first place. The fact that, that supply and service agreement, crossing over and going ahead and doing business with them.
Well, no,
look what it got you.
Whoa. That was Jagmeet Singh trying to play both sides. And in the end, he ended up annoying it. I'm talking about a straight up defection. I'm not saying, you can pretend to be an NDP MP. Come join the Liberals. Yeah, you'll catch some flack, but guess what? You'll be on the winning team for the next 4 years. You will be, maybe they'll make some inducement with the portfolio. Who knows? But I'm just saying, do not close the door to that possibility. It could solve a whole bunch of problems.
That's going to be interesting to watch. I will just close today. You mentioned Yves-François Blanchet, who continues to provide, I think, some of the best audio clips of this election.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
This is the one where he was asked, basically, there's a new guy in charge, and he's going to be in there. It's a, different guy to contend with. What will it be like? And he said this.
Up to not so long ago, we hardly spoke to each other. I'm more seasoned in politics than my colleagues, and I have such a sweet temper.
I have no idea what that means, Jim, but there you go. I just like
you know what the guy. Yeah, I'll tell you this. I don't agree with a single political stand that he has. Okay, but the guy's having fun, so that's reason enough to listen to him.
There you go. His sweet temper. James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Matt.